Good morning, and good to see everyone attending our Board of Supervisors meeting. Call to order at 9:01 for the June 27, 2017 Board of Supervisors meeting. Can we have pledge of allegiance lead by Supervisor Medina?
Ready, salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Supervisor Medina. Can I have a acknowledgement certificate of
So
posting?
moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. Thank you. Presentations and recognitions? None. Public comments. This is an opportunity to address the board on items of interest not appearing in today's agendas. No action will be taken unless provided by Government Code Section 54954-2. Do we have any speaker cards?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Ruth Erickson.
Good morning, Ruth Erickson from Hollister. As I was not able to speak yesterday at the budget hearings because you had already finished when I got here, it's never been that fast, I think, in all the 30 years I've been coming. So I will say it today.
You can thank Supervisor Rios for that.
While I'm thankful for the county's funds for this budget year, 2017 to 18, for the county library, I worry about the huge population growth of this community in the city and county now and in the future, that because the county library has been running out of room for many years, the library will have to start turning away library users at times for safety reasons until an expanded library facility is built. Let's hope soon. I have a second item. July 4th is coming, and we invite everybody who has children, grandchildren, nephews, nieces, neighbors, and so on to the Kiddie Parade, which starts at 10 o'clock. Get there before 10. It's on Memorial Drive at Hillcrest, where the bus terminal, the bus parking lot is. And dress your kids up in red, white, and blue, and we'll have a little parade and end up at Margaret May Schools. Great for photographs, great for your video, and the kids love it. Also, the fireworks will be at the airport, as they were last year. It was cold last year, so I do suggest that you do not wear shorts and T-shirts and flip-flops because it was freezing last year. I haven't got the time yet, but usually about 9 or 9:30, so just check your newspaper or Bonito Link or something, and they will give you the time of the fireworks show. So you're all invited. Everybody's invited to that. It's all free of charge. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Any other speaker cards?
No, Mr. Chair.
Anyone else from the public? None? I'll close it. Now we'll go to department head announcements. CEO Reyes Penosa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we do have a few announcements. One is, as you're aware, the RMA position has been posted, the director position. We do have some candidates, and I'm requesting your board to, if you can, create an ad hoc or have two Board of Supervisors on that panel when we're able to. We'll probably be in the next 3 weeks or so setting up some times to meet and actually interview. So I'd like to request your chair to.
Okay. These meetings are going to be held.
It'll be one day, and well, it's not going to be for the entire board. I just need two
You need two
supervisors on the panel.
I can see Supervisor Medina. Supervisor Medina, you want
sir.
to? You do? Supervisor Munzer, would you like to?
Be happy to.
Okay, thanks. So I'm going to appoint Supervisor Medina and Munzer to that
Okay,
subcommittee.
and I'll coordinate with each one of them, too.
Thank you, Ray.
On the day.
So you say you have 2 potential applicants?
Well, we have multiple applicants, yeah.
I would encourage, if it's okay with the board, I would encourage that maybe contact the business community, see where they can fit, see when we can place them on the table for further discussions and opportunities. Just consideration.
Yeah, that's fine.
both,
We can do that.
supervisors take that into consideration.
We can work on that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, anything else?
One more. I just wanted to announce a reminder. We actually set up a meeting date for Thursday at noon to discuss the jail and have final deliberations with the jail, as well as our budget will be finalized on that day. I'm requesting your board that we do a business casual or casual day for that, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay.
Perfect.
That's all the announcements.
3 weeks is too much.
All right, I got before. You know what? I'll wait. Supervisor Rivas.
No, not.
Thank you. Supervisor Patello.
Yeah, I have a couple announcements. I attended an RCRC meeting last week, and pretty much of a run-of-the-mill June meeting. But as usual, the conversation was on marijuana, cannabis, and the committee was asked to take a position on H.R. 975. I should have brought my book in. And that really consisted of, for the states that have legalized medical marijuana and recreational marijuana, that the federal government will not enforce that Class 1 substance drug law in those states. And it was pretty controversial, close vote. It was a 14 to 11 to 3 vote that we supported the staff recommendation to support that bill. The other bill that was talked about was a banking bill to, allow banking within that industry. It just adds to accountability for taxation and monitoring of the legitimate operators, and so the RCRC board took a more unanimous position on that. Since the last meeting that we had here 2 weeks ago, we talked about Highway 25 and the ZBES expansion. I thought we were have a letter of concern to Santa Clara County on that issue. I think between that time and now, a number of us supervisors had an opportunity to meet with ZBES officials, and they clarified their traffic mitigations. Is it going to cure all the problems of Highway 25? Probably not, but they're putting in a substantial road improvement in that corridor, acceleration lanes and deceleration lanes, and also limiting the number of trucks during the peak travel times of our commuters. And as one supervisor, I remain very, very concerned about Highway 25. We have to be very vocal at every opportunity to work with Santa Clara County to make the improvements on both their side of the county line and our side of the county line. But as for this particular business and their proposal, I think they've stepped up and heard the community, this community, and are concerned about the conditions of the highway as well. So I was very satisfied with that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Would you, Supervisor Patel, would you like to request that we put that item on some future agenda, or you're okay?
Well, unless the other supervisors wants,
Okay.
but I'm fine with it myself.
Okay, we'll pull the board after we have our discussion. Supervisor Medina?
Yeah, just to add to that is, I know a lot of people commute using that Highway 25, and I was told that when they, especially during the peak hours, when they turn off of the Bolsa, coming back to Hollister, it's a safety issue, and it seems to slow down traffic because they're trying to turn into the traffic. I spoke with Supervisor Michael Wasserman from Santa Clara. I will have a meeting with him next week. He just emailed me back today, and we're looking at possibly a way to alleviate that traffic during peak hours, maybe make it a one-way during a certain period of time. So that would allow the traffic to flow a little bit easier rather than having to have people come into that area. And we'll also be talking about Z-Best also. So I'd like to invite Anthony also to attend with me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That concludes your report?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Supervisor Munzer?
Nothing.
Mine's real simple. I just got an email. Thank you, Louis, for sending that email. And I see Jim out there, and I'm kind of surprised Jim didn't talk about this. I guess the continuum of care is now coordinating a tri-county or bi-county board of directors, and they're asking that a member of the board of supervisors attend their meetings, and if any of the supervisors wish to participate in that organizations. And I kind of did talk to Supervisor Munzers, and he kind of said yes, unless some other supervisor has expressed an interest. Anyone willing to serve on the Homeless Coalition group, Monterey County and San Benito County? Supervisors?
Yeah,
You like it?
I'll be happy to do it. I just need more information.
Okay, all right, then let's do this. Then let's wait till the next board meeting, and then if anyone wishes interest, we'll consider it. And if no one wishes an interest, then I'll just appoint Supervisor Munzers to the committee.
Oh,
Okay.
Rivas already expressed interest.
I guess you're it, Supervisor Rivas.
No. Yeah, let me see if it works with my schedule.
Perfect.
And then
Perfect.
I'll make it happen.
Yeah.
I certainly want to be involved. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, perfect. Yeah. In fact, get back to me as soon as you can, and
I
then
will.
and then I'll express to Supervisor Munzers that he's it. Okay. Next item, we're going to go into closed session. County Council. Yeah,
Mr. Chair,
Supervisor?
okay, so I'm a little confused on the request to have a letter to Santa Clara County or VTA on the Z-Best. Are we still agendizing that?
Sorry about that.
Or,
Yeah, let me pull the board. Do you wish to put the item on the agenda in some future meeting?
No.
Supervisor Vitello?
Not really.
Supervisor Rivas? You're the swing vote.
On the swing vote, you guys want it on there?
I want it.
Put it on there.
Okay, we'll put it.
and without going into too much detail,
just in full.
just so we can discuss it, and if nothing else, maybe write a letter of support for what the applicant wants to do. We can write a letter of support.
Okay, that's good.
As opposed to a letter of protest, we'll write a letter of support.
Good idea.
But I think we need to agendize it and have it discussed.
Okay, we'll have it on the July 17th meeting.
That's even I changed my vote.
Too late, Anthony. You're the no vote. Us three are the
Let the
good
record
people.
show 3-2.
You guys are the bad people.
Let
Chase,
the record show.
the record show.
I'm on the
Anthony
wrong
said
side again.
I'm counting already, Anthony.
I could be on the wrong side sometimes.
Thank you, Supervisor Moser. Okay, we'll put it.
Yeah, we'll put it on.
All right, County Council.
Closed session, public employee performance evaluation, title is County Council Authority Government Code 54957.
Thank you. Anybody from the public wish to give their thoughts on the matter? None? We'll go to closed session.
Hated when Jerry
County Council?
No reportable action.
Thank you. Okay. Do any of the supervisors wish to pull any of the consent items out?
My apologies, Robert, number 27.
I'll let it slide.
Supervisor Patello?
Yeah, I apologize to Robert, too. 7,
Number 7?
yeah.
Supervisor Munzer?
I don't have to apologize to Robert, none.
None. Supervisor Rivas?
Happy to report, I have none to pull, Mr. Chief.
I will be on the winning side, none to report. None. Anyone from the public? None? Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
Move approval of the remaining consent.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carries. Thank you. Number 7, Supervisor Patello?
Yeah, just real quick, 1 minute. When I see something like this, I want to acknowledge the Friends of the Library and thank them for, their generosity. I think it's really important that the library is present at different events in our community, the Farmers Market and the Downtown Street Festival. It's just to make sure people understand that we're here, and we have a bookmobile, we have a library, and, acknowledge that we have a long ways to go to make it where it's the asset it needs to be, but with help from outside groups, I just want to say thank you. I think that's important to acknowledge. That's all I have on that one.
Thank you. Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to approve item number 7.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carries. Thank you. It's 5-0. Number 27, Supervisor Medina?
Yeah, this is just for informational purposes only. Just want to be transparent about this, as I know I've been the one to bring a fuss up to these consultants, and we're looking at spending $135,000. It's a lot of money. It's something that's it's needed, and that's why I just wanted to explain why the $135,000 is extremely important to me. We need proper backup in order to negotiate or to go anywhere in the future. We need to make sure that we have all the costs covered in order to recoup any type of expense we have in our county, whether it's the roads, whether it's the landfill, what have you. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. Supervisor Patello?
Yeah, one of the things, and looking at this, just for clarity, because I thought this study was supposed to also incorporate some of the other heavy trucks that are being, ran through the county. It's just not the landfill trucks, but the opportunity to have, some sort of measurement with trucks going to Earthbound Farms and some of the other ag industries and mining industries. But if it's just one industry,
I guess the first question, who's paying for this? Is it through the enterprise fund?
This will be through the enterprise fund,
So
yes.
we could only use it for what's related to the...
Right, and the study, the scope includes the refuse trucks that are part of the solid waste collection. Now, Supervisor Botello, the other trucks, if that's something that the board in the future wants to do, we could certainly come up with a phase 2 to study that, but for this particular purpose, it's just the refuse trucks.
oh, it's just for those trucks.
Yes, sir.
I thought we were studying, other trucks as well because of the impacts on other roads, but
Would you like to place an item on a future agenda
I
meeting?
guess because
Let's do that.
it just seems like
So-
it's for $135,000. That's a lot of money just to study trucks from one business, one entity. I could do that in one afternoon.
So if we wanted to add, additional trucks or additional elements to the study, we certainly could do that. I don't know what the differential would be on adding those additional variables to the study. That's really what it is. But we certainly can do that. We'd like to have the board, if possible, take action on this scope today, and then if it's possible to add the additional scope of the additional types of trucks so that we can have a chance to identify how we would identify, what industries and what types of vehicles we would be studying, then we would find that desirable.
But but Supervisor Patel does raise up a good point. It's $135,000 to do the study.
That's a lot of money. How do we recapture that? And how long would it take? I think, I don't know. Even say we're after the John Smith landfill.
Well, so the issue, of course, is, from what I have heard the board discuss in the past, is what are the impacts of those vehicles on the roads in the county? And those impacts are considerable. Now, $130,000 expenditure is quite a bit of money, but I would say that in comparison to the costs that the county could potentially recoup from the analysis and the conclusions that the data will show are going to more than compensate for the initial expense upfront.
You done, Supervisor Patel?
And Supervisor Vitello, I hear your concern about it. It is a lot of money. It is a lot of money. But what's going to cost even more money is the unknown. How do we calculate the unknown factor of what the trucks may be costing without some kind of data? And that's one of the things that we've been trying to do, is make decisions based upon evidence so we can make sure that we recoup costs in a calculatable way.
I just kind of find I'm starting to have a little problem with the fairness of it, because I know how I would be if I was the operator of the landfill or the operator of the collection service, that you're just targeting my trucks when you got trucks all over running all for different, whether you're talking about the cannery or some of the other processors. I'm more into treating everything fairly.
Understood. Of course, the county does have an agreement with a particular hauler, and so that's where our focus is with the study in any case. But your point is very well taken. There are other trucks from many other industries, trucking, all sorts of different goods and services and variables that should be included. I agree. We have to start somewhere. This is where I think the most prudent place is to start.
Okay.
Supervisor Medina?
No, the end's court.
I'm going to bring something up that no one wants to hear. When we think about this, $135,000, I'm the one always here talking about penny pinching, consultants this, consultants that. But if we look at the past and we look at our tax sharing agreement, there's no teeth in that number. We can't look at that and say X goes here, Y goes here, C goes here, A goes there. The reason I want this is because we're going to be able to look at this and say, this is the cost. We can go back and audit it. We can look at it. We can show someone some tangible evidence where these numbers came from, how they were derived. That's why it's so important to me. So $135,000 compared to having these issues we've had for the last year and a half with the tax share agreement, I just don't want that to repeat itself. That's why I'm an advocate of the consulting firm to continue with this process.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Medina. Supervisor Munzer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to reiterate, as one of the members of the ad hoc committee, this information is very important to us as a committee to have it. I understand it's a lot of money to be spent for a study, but the ad hoc committee dealing with the landfill, we need this information. We all know we're getting a lot of constituents' complaints about the trucks going through the county to the landfill. We need to know what the cost to the county is of those trucks, and and as we go forward with the RFP for the local hauler, we also need to know those costs. So I think it's very important that we go forward and approve this item. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, open up to the public. Anyone from the public? None, I'll close it. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for staff recommendation.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against?
One, no.
Motion carries 4-1.
Thank you.
Thank you. Regular agenda. We will now go to number 30. Ag Commissioner Karen?
29.
Oh,
29.
sorry. I'm sorry, I apologize.
hearing.
We will have public hearing number 29, Emergency Medical Services. Kevin? Hey, I'm trying to get fast.
See how it could possibly cost that much.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm actually going to pass this off to our EMS coordinator, Chris Mangano, who's going to give you a little, some information on the report that Mr. Graves is handing out to you. This is our annual public hearing to address the CSA and the fees and what's been going on. And so with that, I'm going to give it to Chris Mangano.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning. It's a privilege to bring to you a snapshot of the EMS system and a report on the Community Service Area 36. The CSA 36 funds are used, are an essential service of the EMS agency. We have been collecting the minimum $14 for quite some time, and this year we are actually requesting an increase to the maximum charge of $20. The additional funds will be used to fund improvements to the EMS system within the county and to relocate our offices as we have outgrown our current space. Other sources of revenue for EMS include the Maddie Fund, a contract we have with Hollister Hills to provide ambulance service to them, HPP grant funds, and fees that are imposed upon the ambulance providers and EMTs and paramedics for their certifications and accreditations. Last calendar year, AMR, our 911 contracted provider, as well as Hollister Fire, responded to 2,748 emergency calls with a response time performance of 95%. In addition, AMR provided 217 interfacility transports to and from specialty care facilities, stroke centers, trauma centers, cardiac centers, and patients to and from nursing homes in the county. The report I provided shows a detailed map of the calls in the county. A few recent accomplishments include revising our policies, procedures, and protocols manual. These manuals define the standards of the operations of the EMS system, and they're outlined by the state, and they prescribe the official treatments provided for all patients. And that's what the paramedics and EMTs have to use for every call. A few other things that we tackled this past year was the EMS agency participated in a full-scale exercise of an active shooter that was held at the Platinum Theaters, and we had about 50 volunteers that we had come in and do that. We worked with all of our allied agencies within the county, including the FBI, who actually came in and helped us. We are currently in the planning stages for this year's statewide exercise that will take place in November. Community outreach for our next fiscal year includes placing AEDs in every county and city building. The increase of the CSA 36 will afford us the opportunity to place approximately 30 and train personnel on how to use them. In partnership with AMR and Hollister Fire, we are offering hands-only CPR at farmers markets, and we were at Kids in the Park. The 911 ambulance contract expires of June of 2019. We will begin the review of that contract in several months, probably early next calendar year. Funds from the CSA 36 will allow us to review the current system design and make necessary recommendations for a new contract. That concludes my snapshot of EMS. Any questions?
Questions of the board? Supervisor Medina?
Just real quick, I just want to thank you and Kevin and everyone else for the response in January. I know we spent a lot of time out there and got to know both of you, and I just appreciate everything you guys do. Thank you.
Supervisor Rivas?
Yeah, just real quickly. So the current, it's just, I'm just curious about this, is, so it says the maximum is 20.
Correct.
You guys are currently at 14, so historically you've been at 14.
Pardon me?
That $14
Yes.
range? Okay, and so that increase is to 20. And so if you could talk about what those, what is the benefit of that increase, as far as I know there's, in the report, talks about the relocation and the build-out.
Right, relocation, a build-out, enhancements to the 911 system, should we need to add an additional ambulance due to the growth in the county. and just the AEDs, placing those in different departments. That's what's coming to me off the top of my head.
If I may add a little bit. So right now, we're at 95% compliance with with the ambulance response. And what that means is we have different zones in the county for how quick they should be responding to calls. So, for example, in Hollister, I think it's 5 minutes, but then way down in Bitterwater, it's, I think, 60 minutes or 90 minutes.
90.
So they're at 95%, so they're doing a good job. However, we're anticipating all this growth, more call volume, and perhaps having to add a third ambulance. However, that might not be fiscally feasible for AMR without some kind of subsidies from the county. So we're kind of preparing for that. Obviously, we'll be taking it back to the board for your consideration, but we want to be able to make that move if need be to have that third ambulance, because we're already seeing quite a few times this year where both ambulances are busy and we're having to ask for help from our neighboring counties. And in terms of the move, it would be only a limited time expense before we would then be able to roll it back. And we actually, part of the reason we're increasing it was based on the board's advisement from last year's report, where we had asked for the minimum again, and this board, less Supervisor Medina, had suggested raising it so we could take care of some of these outstanding items.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Munzer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to stress this move, as my understanding, is not just to give you new offices with new desks and new paint on the wall. It's to increase your ability to train and educate, because you'll have in that move, you're planning on having a classroom-type setting in it that you can train people.
Correct. Currently, to do any training, any CPR, we have to seek outside sources.
Yeah. So
we'd like to bring that in.
Yeah. So this move is very important to service our constituents. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Patello?
I am satisfied with the report. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So again, to hold the public hearing for any to hear any objections, protests, or requests for change or corrections. I'm going to open up to the public. Anyone from the public? No one? I'll bring it back to the board. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for staff recommendation.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, now we go to regular agenda 39, Karen.
30, isn't it?
30, oh, that's right, 30.
We're going 39. Okay, we're closed session.
30.
I'll try to make this short. Each year I come before the board to present the engineer's report regarding the mosquito abatement program. This report is prepared annually by SCI consultants to determine the appropriate assessment rate to fund the program. For the upcoming fiscal year, we are recommending the assessment remain at $11.22 per single-family equivalent. Some of the considerations going into that is that the number of single-family equivalent units has increased, which has increased the assessment somewhat. We have some carryover from the current fiscal year that could range anywhere between 8 and maybe even 20,000 until the year closes. I won't know that number for sure. And I've kind of restructured the staffing to utilize seasonal help where a licensed person isn't needed. So it actually results in more hours in the program than we had before. I am seeking 3 actions today. Preliminarily, accept the engineer's report, adopt the resolution 2017-62 of intent to levy assessment for 2017-2018, and schedule a hearing for July 18th to receive public comment.
Thank you. Supervisor Patello?
No, thank you, Karen, for doing such a great job with this program. I haven't heard any complaints or concerns, and keep the mosquitoes down.
Supervisor Munzer?
Ditto. Just doing a great job. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Supervisor Rivas? Supervisor Medina?
Yes, sir.
Let me open up to the public. Close the public. Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to accept the engineer's report and adopt the resolution of intent to levy the assessment for fiscal years 2017 and 18, and schedule the public hearing for July 18, 2017.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against, motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Karen. Now we'll go to 31. Alan?
Item 31 is my request for a F-step for the clinical behavioral health supervisor position. And the reason why I'm asking for the F-step is because we've had difficulty recruiting for this position. Actually, we've had difficulty recruiting for any of our clinical positions, even the line clinical position, particularly when we seek people with a license. So this particular position requires a license, requires some amount of experience. This individual has that. The position has been open for over a year and a half. We have not had a viable candidate pool in that time. I feel like we have a very good candidate at hand now. She is working for Molina Health in San Diego, very large healthcare organization. It's, I guess for comparison, it's very much like the Kaiser organization. So we're dealing with not only the cost structure of salary that she currently gets, but she gets free health with Molina Health. It's a huge cost, as you all know, because we've had extensive discussion on those issues here. So additionally, this person is moving with her husband to the area. That is her plan, provided that we can offer her this position. And she plans to reside in Hollister. So I think when you get that combination of having somebody with the experience, with a license, and willing to also live here, that allows you something to also build on for the future, hopefully. So that's why I'm requesting that this request be authorized.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Munzer?
Nothing.
Thank you. Supervisor Rivas?
Nothing, Mr. Chair, thanks.
Supervisor Medina?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me open up to the public. Close it. What's the pleasure of the board?
I move to approve the request to hire a behavioral health clinical supervisor at Step F.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carries 4-0. Okay, 32. Alan?
Okay, this item is our fiscal consultant. He has been a fiscal consultant with us for some time. We do very much value his services, and I think the area of concern that I am aware of is that the contract was increased in terms of the overall total contract amount by $20,000. The hourly rate has remained the same for approximately 9 years, so there's been no hourly increase. So in the scope of all matters, it's a relatively small increase, but the increase is also tied to a particular action, and that action is the No Place Like Home application for a bond application that will be made available later this year. And No Place Like Home is a bond that will be offered to all counties, and it will be funded primarily by Mental Health Service Act money. There already are estimates out for how much each county behavioral health department will have to contribute out of their Mental Health Service Act funds to fund that bond. We know that for San Benito County, we will essentially lose approximately $300,000 a year for that bond. Our hope is to try to recoup some of those funds and recoup them in a manner that will also assist with low-income housing, because that is the intention of No Place Like Home. It is to deal with the people that are at high risk for being homeless or already are homeless, and focused, of course, on the mentally ill. There have already been challenges about the utilization of MHSA money, that's Prop 63, for funding of No Place Like Home, because it was targeted for the mentally ill. So the concessions have been made in configuring the language in the bill to be strictly focused on the mentally ill. Previously, your board, approximately 2 meetings ago, authorized me to go forward with the first part of No Place Like Home, which was an application for a grant for technical assistance. I applied for that grant. It's a non-competitive grant. We expect to get that grant. That grant is intended to offset the cost of consultants, specifically to deal with developers, because typically you need a developer to be involved in projects like this. So I have configured part of the money from the No Place Like Home TA grant to offset part of this contract. That's where the extra funds come from. It may not be billed to the extra amount if that work is not completed to that level. We don't know at this point in time. It's in there for that purpose. So I'm asking your support on that.
I have no questions, Alan. Supervisor Medina?
Yes, sir.
Supervisor Rivas?
The only question I have, Alan, is I know that this is a contract where there is, looks like the person under this contract provides some oversight activities as far as some fiscal oversight. And so has he been retained by the county for a number of years, or have we ever had a change, who we contract with?
We have not had a change, and he does have a high degree of expertise in this area and is utilized by many counties, and in particular small counties. So I see it as fortunate that we have his expertise at this point in time. I think other counties also see that as fortunate. Will we ever be able to exactly duplicate that sometime in the future, because he won't be around forever, as none of us will be? I don't think so. I think we'll be able to eventually develop people to do some of the functions. I think we keep them as long as we can keep them. We might do some sort of phase-out or tapering eventually. I think we'll have to do that. And I think some of that will actually be by choice of the contractor.
Right. Thank you, Alan. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Munzer?
Nothing.
Okay, open up to the public. Close it. What's the will of the board? I'll make a motion that we approve contract.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Okay, 33. Jim? I spoke too early, right, Jim?
Yeah, what?
About the continuum of care?
Oh, yeah. I can speak to that. But, so this is our homeless services report, which we do on a monthly basis. I wanted to point out to the board that we've changed the format for you. And the reason we changed the format is to highlight what we're doing in various areas for programs that may involve people who are homeless. And I think we do, and we are part of the Monterey, San Benito County continuum of care. I have been going to those meetings. It would be very welcome to have a member of the board there if that would fit with your schedules. I think we learn a lot. There's funding that comes through that organization to us, and some of that is reflected in here. Also in this report is the latest census for the homeless that was done in January. The census that came out says that our homeless population, based upon this census count, has been reduced by 9% from the previous year. We've already had questions about how did that happen, and and there's a number of various answers, but I think one of the answers is that we the Board of Supervisors, the City Council have really focused on this issue, and staff has really taken that focus to heart and really tried to work hard on this. And then since we published this report, we've had two issues that have come up this last week. One is we did get the award for the whole person care demonstration pilot. So that means we now have the authority to work with the state on finalizing contracts and beginning to put that program together here in San Benito County and make expenditures. Two is we did receive notification from the state on our 2016 Community Block Development Grant. As you recall, we applied in 2014. We got the funding for the purchase of the building at 1161 and to build out at least the shelter portion of that. We then applied in 2016, and we were approved for that. That funding will be used to build out the remainder of the building, and it also has funding in there for some operations, for some youth activities, for domestic violence programs in San Benito County. So the clearances now allow us to make expenditures and claim expenditures against those funds. The total funds there is $1.5 million. So I just wanted to update the board on those items, and if you have any questions, happy to answer them.
Thank you. Supervisor Rivas?
So regarding the report, Jim, I do have a couple of questions.
Sure.
It was a great report.
Thank you.
Very short and to the point, which is excellent. And so the first one was just, and you may or may not have an answer to these questions, but the first is under the winter shelter budget of $55,000. Let's see here. It says in the report that 35 families participated. And so the question I have is how many successfully made the transition to permanent housing?
I don't know the exact answer to that. I do know that I was at a meeting at the migrant camp with the COC a couple of months ago, and at least one of the participants stood up and said, because of this program, I've gotten a job and I've gotten housing. But we can look into that and send you some information on that.
That would be great. Yeah, I'm just, obviously in our community we lack a lot of housing opportunities for families and for working families, and so that just that caught my eye. The second one is related to the tenant-based rental assistant.
Yes.
That's that HUD program, I believe.
Yes.
And so I was unaware of this program until I read this, and so my question was, what is the process for those in need to apply to the program?
Okay.
And then the second question is, what is the typical amount of assistance that is allocated to eligible residents?
Okay, so the process is that when we get the funds, we put out a notification that these funds are available and people apply for them. Okay. I'm going to ask Sylvia to walk up and see if she can give you a little more detail, because I don't know the exact amount, but I do know that if they are eligible and they get approved, I believe they're eligible for up to a year of temporary assistance. And I'll like...
Yes.
And it's very similar to like a Section 8 program, correct?
A little bit it is, yeah. So we currently do have a waiting list of approximately a couple hundred individuals. So we are moving along. We hired a temporary eligibility worker to work with this program. So we are moving along with the waiting list. And the eligibility, it does consist of the home CDBG guidelines, the 60 and 80%. So basically, we can pay, as Jim mentioned, up to 12 months of their rent. And it's not at 100%, it's about at a 70% rate.
Okay, so it's substantial.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Excellent, thank you. I appreciate that. And then my last question, Jim, is that the beautification project.
Yes.
And so I noticed that, the project budget was $10,000. The pilot project obviously had great goals. It was a great intentions, but the participation was extremely low.
Yes.
And so the question I had is, those who participated, were they paid? And because I know that the program was like a 3-month program, correct? It was a 3-month program. And so maybe you can answer why the participation was so low.
Can you answer that?
I will. Okay, so we did reach out, and this project was discretionary funding to serve the homeless population.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, they had a lot of barriers to overcome. So that was the reason why we were not able to secure more individuals, because we did reach out to them. It was during the shelter when we had that going on. They just have a lot of issues. They either lack of transportation, mental health issues, things like that. So we wish we could have, had a minimum of around 5 individuals, but unfortunately, that did not happen.
So it sounds like this is only a one-time thing.
It was a one-time thing unless the state provides additional funding. We would put out to request it because there are projects out there that are needed. Right now, we are finishing up. We tried to finish up with helping out with the Babe Ruth fields. We understand there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but some of these individuals did help out also at the Migrant Center. So there are projects out there that need the attention. Unfortunately, like I said, it's a population that needs some, a lot of support.
Thank you, Sylvie.
Let me just follow up on that. And with the introduction of whole person care, hopefully we can begin to deal with some of these barriers. Yeah.
Thank you, Jim. Great. And you guys did a great report. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Supervisor Medina?
Nothing, sir?
No. Open up to the public. Bring it back.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next item, 30. Actually, you know what? We're going to take a quick 5-minute break.
$10,000 budget, they're paying for people.
Huh?
Going up. Okay, 34.
Hi, good morning. Before you today, what started out as the request to award a contract for architectural design, we turned it into a little bit more of a discussion about the overall thoughts and ideas and options we have for moving a little bit more forward on this project. This project is the behavioral health building proposed solution to their needs. That department has had some funding available for facility improvements for some time now. The first batch of it is due to expire, at the end of this week, essentially. And we've been using up some of those funds to advance their goal of having their own building. One of the stipulations on this funding is that it only be used on a county-owned facility, and since they're currently located in a leased facility, we haven't been able to use it at their current office. So one thing that was done earlier this year is we closed on the property shown on the plan there, adjacent to their existing office, and with some additional money, wanted to begin programming and schematic design for that building. Now, what that involves is obviously analyzing their current operations, their future projected needs, and coming up with what size of building and layout and all of that stuff makes sense. In working on a proposal for us, the architect, who was identified through an RFP process some time ago as being the most qualified to work on this, they came up with a few options, realizing that we may not have, all the money necessary to complete the ideal solution. The ideal solution being a brand new, approximately 20,000 square foot building. So they developed these plans here, and this drawing that's on the page here shows an option 1 and an option 2. However, due to the prices on those, we are going to focus a little bit more on option 3, which is on the next page here. If I scroll down to that. Option 3 essentially consists of 12,000 square foot, which probably won't be large enough to handle everything that behavioral health needs, but it obviously would handle a good portion of that. And this is a more seemingly manageable goal as far as the funding is concerned, and that's something that Alan is able to speak on a little bit further. Are there any questions on what I've shown or discussed right now before we move on?
Could this potentially tap into the general fund?
Well, anything potentially could, but obviously we're trying to avoid that and
we're about to hear of the jail, and I'm just afraid that I just felt like I was asleep at the time when the jail was coming forward. I didn't ask enough questions, so I guess sucker now that I learned from the jail, I just can't support something that's an unknown expense.
Well, and that's why Alan has really taken a hard look at this option 3 here, because he feels that this budget is more attainable through funding that he has access to and not using general fund. Obviously, the $10 million number that would be a brand new building that we kind of showed in that unfunded CIP list, that does have some issues. So we wanted to look at what other options there may be that avoids those general fund concerns. And that's looking at what the architect came up with is something that Alan can speak to about how this may fit his needs and how he may be able to pay for this option.
Okay. All right. Supervisor Patello?
Yeah, well, I have a real sense of urgency on this item. I think we have to make a decision today, of course. Otherwise, we're going to lose probably a couple $100,000 that's with this grant that it will expire. And that lessens our ability to further design this project going into even next year, because another set of money will expire if we don't act on it. And the question I have, Adam, is we're going to engage into a contract just so we could spend that $200,000 Nascimentos that's set to expire in the next week or two to this Yamaguchi architectural service to design one of the three options, or and we are going to decide on the type of project today.
So thank you for bringing up a couple of those points. So a portion of the money, approximately $280,000, will expire this fiscal year, and an additional amount expires next year. It was originally a larger amount. We used some, obviously, to buy the land there. The thought here was to hire this firm with the remaining expiring funds, and their scope, as it's written here, applies to any of these options. Okay, so this is the research and the programming and the basic design and understanding of the operations, just to see what the needs are, and that would be needed no matter what type of building we were going to provide. They need to know what they need to try to fit, right, and what things need to happen there. And at the end of that, we'll be able to make a decision on how to move forward with any of these options. But the intent here today was to show you that there are options, get some feedback, present some of our ideas. We don't necessarily need to make a decision on which option today, just so that you understand that there are options, and to hear which way you are leaning, so that we can focus on that during the design efforts. But the design efforts on this contract basically apply maybe not entirely, but a big portion of those efforts apply to any of these options.
Okay, now I do comprehend what you're saying. And one of the things that concerns me, and look at the three options, one is slightly, well, not to say slightly anymore, it's better than $1 million more. Option 2 is better than $1 million than option 3. And the first option is, the Cadillac version would be the $9 million version, which I think would be very difficult to consider at any point in time. And wouldn't we be money ahead and get more work out of the consultant if we just say and put the parameters between option 2 and option 3? Because the way speaking with the director, I think he feels that, given his opportunities for funding, that's probably attainable, and we get into a building. I just don't want my successor 10 years from now saying, well, geez, we're still working on this thing. It's very similar to what happened with the jail for one reason or another. I would like to assign this, get the architect, do what he's supposed to do with this, the space that would be functionable, and then move on to the next step and moving towards construction all the time. I think that's the expectation I would be having by moving forward with this contract, is that, this is real work, going to a real project, going to be built probably within a reasonable amount of time.
The scope as it's written does not include construction documents, because the intent was just to spend the money that we had and then give us options, do the work that we needed to do with any option, and then we could discuss further. If your preference is of a specific option, then we can certainly have them focus their efforts towards that sooner rather than later. We would still need to prepare some sort of construction documents. That's not included in this scope right now. But, that would be more clear after this scope is completed.
Right. I'll probably reserve, any sort of position until after I hear from Alan as well. Thank you.
Supervisor Munzer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I express the same concerns you do. I think between the presentation we're having today and the presentation we're having on Thursday about the jail, we're going to be tapped out. We're not going to be able to fund anything else. So I need to hear from Alan. I don't care if it's option 1, 2, or 3, but I need the assurance, 100% assurance, whatever road we goes down, he's going to have the funding to pay for it. Because I don't see that we're going to be able to do any other project in the near future until we have our arms around the expansion of the jail.
Oh, yeah, no, understood, and that's yeah, we'll just get right to it.
That's very important. Let's hear it from Alan.
Yes.
Actually, you know what, Alan? Hold on a minute. Supervisor Rivas?
Yeah, and so I have some, a couple questions that Alan could probably answer. And, reading through all these documents and these items, there's, a couple things that pop out at me. Obviously, the first one was, we're kind of under the gun here because of the expiration of these funds. And so my first question was, when were these funds allocated? When was this grant allocated? And then the other thing that got me is certainly we got to do something that's in the best interest of our consumers out there at Behavioral Health, but also our staff that is out there. I know that the current the facility, despite the substantial rent we're paying per month, $16,366.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Wish I got that kind of rent on anything. That's ridiculous. And so I'm reading all of the numbers, which I appreciate. It's not substantially more should we move into this direction, obviously, which is in the best interest of our county and our taxpayers. But those are the two questions I had right off the bat.
Okay.
You want to answer those two questions, Alan?
Yeah, well, let me see if I'm clear on the two questions. You were asking about the rent and the ability to debt service.
Debt service, it's kind of in line with
supervisors.
What's been asked.
Sure.
The first one, I think, is what popped out at me is why we're under the gun and why we have waited to the absolute last date, almost last date of it's done.
Well, that's a great question. And there's a long road of history that I'll try to consolidate into a short synopsis of what occurred. The money was allocated almost 10 years ago. And we had struggled for many years just to figure out exactly how we were going to get out of the present situation because the rent has a maintenance of effort clause in it. So if we were to vacate the property, the county would still be obligated to rent property. To what degree was always somewhat obfuscated, and as we worked with council through this, it still isn't exactly clear how much has to be rented, other than a substantial amount has to be rented. So it didn't become totally clear that we had options for somebody to occupy that property until fairly recently. And I think with Health and Human Services expansion and new funding coming in, I think largely to the Affordable Care Act and other sources of funding they have obligated themselves to be able to rent a portion of the building. Also, I think it was child support also has a clause in their lease that they have now left flexible to allow them to move should we have an option to rent some of that space to them. So long story short, that's essentially where we got to, and it's been a long time. We dealt obviously with a couple of different administrations through that process. Everybody seemed to have different ideas about which way to go. We even thought about one time about purchasing part of the building that we're in, and that entailed a discussion with Community Development Corporation on creating business condos. That failed because it turned out that they couldn't break up enough of the building to be feasible for our use. Then we even looked at purchasing a piece of land outside the existing building, consuming part of the parking lot, and then building a building. Those estimates came back so high that didn't seem feasible for the square footage. So we've had many different ideas that have been put forth, many different ideas that we've gone down the road with.
You want to answer just concerns about you're going to guarantee that general fund money won't be used?
Well, I can guarantee you as much as I can control funding, but, it's been a lot of years that I've been here, and I have never tapped into your general fund. I'm fairly confident, barring anything catastrophic unforeseen with the state, that Prop 63 money will continue to be there. Part of the issue on this funding is much of our funding today is focused on Prop 63, the Mental Health Service Act. That seems to be pretty solid. I think there's a great deal of advocacy, not only with the public, but also with the legislature to support the causes of behavioral health. We know that those are social issues that continue to rise to the surface. They seem to be growing. I don't see anti-sentiment against providing those kinds of services.
Any other questions before I open up to the public? Joe? Sure.
While Joe Paul's going up there, right, as noted by Supervisor Rivas, we're paying somewhere around $16,000 and change for rent per month now, and it's projected to go up as high as $19,000. And you already have, just for clarification, what $1 million or $1.5 million set aside for construction costs, Alan?
Yes, we will have $1,769,000 with the transfer that we plan to do out of allowable Mental Health Service Act funds in 17-18. That'll bring us to $1,769,000. What you should also be aware of is the option 4 at $4,116,000. The $305,000 that's being paid for this contract is subtracted from that amount because it's part of the soft cost line item. So once we pay for this contract that's put before you for approval today, we'll be down to a balance for the option 3 of $3,811,000. When we contribute the $1,769,000 to that gets us down to $2,042,000. We ran calculations based on a 3% interest rate, which Joe Paul gave us. Based on that, we're looking at a debt servicing of $19,312 a month. We assumed that would be amortized on a 10-year amortization schedule based on, again, information Joe Paul gave us. At the end of the 10-year term, servicing the debt at that amount, there will be no longer a balloon payment. We will own the property.
Right, and the point is that the county will own an improved piece of property and probably could carry a limited debt, so I feel a little bit more comfortable about this. Yeah, thank you.
Ray?
I just wanted to add a little bit further to Supervisor Rivas's comment. One of the concerns from past administration was being able to backfill that square footage. There was a minimum requirement of square footage that we had to occupy in that particular building, and there were really no takers. Health and Human Services couldn't take it on. So this current administration has been working with Ellen as well as with our auditor on options, and we've talked to Health and Human Services and with new programs, as Ellen had mentioned, with the ACA and the different other programs, as well as CCS, we have an option to be able to backfill this area. Keep in mind, I think it's in 2023 is when our contract, we have to have it filled with a certain percentage up until that date. And then at that point, I think it's $1 a year. Then we have to just maintain the facility, maintain the site. So I think there was some complexities in years past being able to move forward because we didn't want to lose that $1 a year. We wanted to make sure that we had that. There's quite a few years invested there. So I just wanted to kind of give a little bit of background with that. But I think right now, we have a pretty solid plan, and we're getting really close to that deadline, to that date. So,
the service, debt service, you can use operating revenue to service the debt.
Yes, absolutely.
I know general fund we can do that, but the serenity fund.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. All right, Joe?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention to the board that we're going to be basically conducting a debt capacity study that we're going to ask our financial advisor to do. What we're going to look at is how much we can collateralize based upon the jail project and this project, so that we can, utilize that capacity in a way that, the behavioral health building can be built. For example, if we were able to get that 3% rate, and it's over 20 years instead of 10 years, that $2 million that we need to finance is $11,234 a month.
Which is cheaper than the current rent.
Well, it means there's a lot more margin there to be able to do things. And so, once we know what that capacity is, this project is, we know that the amount of this project is not that big, but when we combine it with other financing endeavors like the jail, perhaps, we're able to procure a better rate and combine the efforts of the county to increase the the building value of county buildings.
Shouldn't we done that report before we're talking about the jail and this building?
Well, I think one of the things is that, we don't have a contract right now with our financial advisor. We kind of let it go by the wayside. We weren't in the building. We weren't thinking about that.
Yeah.
Remember, we didn't think about. We didn't think that the jail project was going to come in so much higher over the expected.
You're
amount.
correct. That's right. But let me. Any other questions from the board before I open up to the public? Supervisor Munzer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Joe Paul, you're proposing to hire a financial advisor, I think is the term you use, to do the study of how much we're able to go out and bond.
Yeah, it's a pretty minimal study. It's basically, what do we own and what's it worth?
Okay, so in that study, and you're doing it to consider the jail expansion, this project?
Yeah, I
and
think
we also consider some road projects in this study? Using SB1 monies? I don't want to end up with the same issue as we had earlier, where we're spending a lot of money to study one type of traffic, and in the back of our minds, we were in...
That capacity study will tell us what is the maximum amount that the county can leverage.
Okay.
So we have these two projects. We know that's X amount that we're going to need. The difference will be how much more we can actually borrow.
Okay, so that we would...
We can do that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I'm going to open up to the public. Anyone from the public?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Board. My name is Pat Lowe, and I'm on the Mental Health Board, and I have been for many years. I'm not representing them, I'm representing myself as an individual. But I would just really like to urge the Board to move forward with this project. The Prop 63 is over 10 years old. We've known about this project for many years, and like most things in government, it moves slowly to begin with, and then we get down to deadlines, and we have to move forward. But if any of you have been out at the mental health department or behavioral health, you know how crowded it is. And I just see with the increase in population that we're going to be increasing services, and it would be the courthouse across the street, I think, is a perfect example of what we can do if we decide to move forward with these projects. And it's just time for this county, I believe, to move forward with some of these positive projects that put us on the map. I see this as part of economic development, truthfully.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Supervisor Lowe. Putting back your hat on the Behavioral Health Board that you served probably when you were a supervisor. Talk about these options. In my own mind, realistically, option 2 or option 3 is kind of the focus we should be considering rather than, a $10 million building. At the board, have that discussion taken place, or what's the sentiment, if there is any?
My personal opinion is I think that we need to move forward with a design that we can live with today, and as time goes on, we can obviously expand. I think that's the way the county's always done things.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public? Okay, I'll bring it back. Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the architectural contract for the $305,010 for the behavioral health building project for a period of June 27, 2017 through December 31st, 2018, and direct staff to focus in on options 2 and 3.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Question on.
Go ahead, Supervisor Munzer.
Sorry, question under the. Do we want to dictate options at this point, or is that what staff was asking of us?
You can certainly offer it up. It's something that I'll use to guide the design process. If there is a preference among the board of which way to go, we can do that.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No problem. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next item, Joe Paul.
Thanks.
Or Angela.
So, again, Chair, Board of Supervisors, Joe Paul Gonzalez, County Clerk, Auditor, Recorder. So, today you are going to be hearing kind of the second half of the presentation I made a couple months ago concerning the Auditor's Office. This is the consolidated office is County Clerk, Auditor, Recorder, Register of Voters. And we thought it's important to bring you a quick kind of a presentation of what we do in the offices of the Clerk, Recorder, and Register of Voters. And today I have my assistant Angela Curl, who will be presenting, making this presentation with the assistance of our staff analyst Francisco Diaz.
Before we move on, Pat, you want to hold on a minute? That picture to the upper right, I know where that picture's from because you cut me out, Joe. I take offense to that, Joe.
It looks much better.
Okay, starting on that positive note, I'm going to do this as quickly as possible. Good morning, board members. The relationship between people in government is one of the key components of the Clerk Recorder Elections team. Excellent customer service, well-trained staff, transparency to the public, and the utilization of current technology at the lowest cost to the taxpayers are one of our key goals. In 2012, there was an extreme budget cut across the county and our 3 divisions. This caused us to develop high-intensity cross-training and major reduction in office hours. Our office is now fully cross-trained across the 3 divisions, and our office hours are 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Here we show our divisions as a combined budget, our revenues and our expenditures by percentage. Revenue is shown in the upper chart and expenditures in the lower. The majority of our revenue and expenditures is shown in orange, which is the recorder's office. Blue is the elections and green is the county clerk. Our current combined budget is over $1.2 million in revenue and $1.6 million in expenditures, with a net county cost of this year of approximately $400,000. The 3 divisions' major services include, for the recorders, processing over 400 different types of official records, including all land transactions and vital records. The clerk's division processes applications for certification of copies of official records and birth, death, and marriage records, issues marriage licenses, maintains conflict of interest codes, filings of FBNs, Form 700, CEQA filings, and many mandated duties.
The Elections Division conducts all federal, state, and local elections for San Benito County voters, maintains all voter registrations, records, and voter outreach, election results, campaign filing, and processes multiple petitions. The Recorder's Office. Many people don't know the original Hall of Records was located next to the original courthouse and is still in use today. It is located currently behind the old courthouse on 5th Street and is accessed through our office. You can see on the left is the Hall of Records, and that window that's shown in the smaller building is how you access it. That's actually where they made the access to the building. There are over 150 years of history stored in the Hall of Records. This building has served San Benito County residents and visitors since the 1920s. The upper photo in black and white shows staff from the 1920s processing recordings by hand in bound books. These books are utilized today not only by our staff, but by the public and title companies. And we are restoring and converting these to digital image over the next several years. There are several ways the County Clerk, Recorder, and Elections Divisions interact with other departments. In this slide, we demonstrate one of those intergovernmental relationships. From a customer coming into the Recorder's office to record an official map may impact the Assessor's office, tax collector, auditor, and if an annexation is processed through the LAFCO, it impacts the Elections office. We have seen a decrease in overall recordings. However, due to new construction, we are seeing an increase in recordings that have involved land transfers. This calendar year, we anticipate over 15,000 recordings with a over 625,000 collection of documentary transfer tax to the general fund, which is not included in our budget. The County Clerk's Department. The main relationship between the Recorder's Office and the County Clerk's Office is the Recorder's Office receives all official records, and the County Clerk's Office makes those records available to the public. So basically, records come in through the Recorder's Office and are certified for the public through the County Clerk's Office. Due to an increase in population, we are seeing an increase in county clerk transactions. Elections. Currently, the county is funding all federal, state, and county elections from the general fund. Schools, cities, and special districts do contribute for their portion of cost. There is new legislation, AB 668, which seeks to bring funding for local elections. This bill requires voters' approval in 2018. Our primary concern is ensuring that we do not lose out on any of this potential revenue. Therefore, the new legislation will be watched very closely, and while we look at potentially renting or leasing new voting equipment, this funding will be watched to make sure that we do not lose out on any of it. There is also new legislation which includes same-day voter registration, California Voters' Choice Act, and also Motor Voter Act. During the 2016 general election, we processed over 22,500 ballots, retained over 90% of our volunteers from the last election. Thank you, Francisco. And increased our provisional voting by over 500%. In closing.
Was that from the Russian hacking?
No, that was for voter participation.
Oh, that's good to hear.
That was people eager to vote, and they weren't on the active roll. So, okay. So, in closing, there has been a lot of news coverage of election hacking in recent months. What must be understood is that while the news reports elections and implies your vote was manipulated, this just hasn't happened and is not true. There are 3 facts and 3 layers of elections. The ballot counting system. This system is completely standalone, and this is our current ballot counting system. Not connected with any internet in any way, and thus cannot be hacked by any outside sources. The voter registration database is a separate system and is located at the county level. This system is behind the county firewall and cannot be directly accessed by outside sources, so we see this as a low risk. Email attacks. The recently reported NSA leaks implied that voter registration system was hacked. In fact, the vendor's mailing list was hacked, and from that hacker sent out attacks to people that were on that list. We understand that IT is working diligently to keep virus protections updated in the county and educating staff on the best practices of email. Any questions, comments?
Good presentation, Francisco. Angela.
And I'd like to thank Francisco so much for helping me put it together.
Supervisor Medina?
No, sir.
Patello?
Very good presentation. Thank you very much. Very informative.
You're welcome.
Supervisor Munzer?
I told you it was Anthony.
You're right. You're right. He said it.
The only thing I have to share is it was a great presentation. I read a article last night. I believe it was in USA the Today or something like that, and it talked about how obviously I enjoy going to the polling place and actually voting. My wife, she likes to go and do the machines if she's able to. So do millions of other Americans. But this article basically talks about how you want to make sure every vote is counted. You got to count every vote manually by paper. And so I always appreciate the job you all do. And certainly in the number of years that I've been actively involved in many elections in this county, going to the election office, waiting for those returns, as challenging it is to wait for those and as suspenseful it is to wait for some of these results, I'd rather wait 3 or 4 weeks for the results to be counted than get a count that very evening, knowing that 3 weeks from now, I'm absolutely secure in knowing that you guys counted these votes that were cast by individuals and not susceptible to, a cyber attack. So, thank you.
Thank you so much.
I just want to say, Angela, I love the attitude and the mission statement that your elections have. I think we can mimic that across the San Bernardino County. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Let me open up to the public. Okay, now bring it back. Okay. That concludes the item.
You should exit first.
That one, right click and say eject. There we go. Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. The one we were waiting for, 36. Receive report on the status of the jail expansion project and provide directions to staff.
Good morning again. Where's the little things? There we go. Okay. So it's no surprise why we're here today. We're here to talk about the jail expansion project. You heard a little bit yesterday about what we're facing. Obviously, this would have been all much easier if bids received were within our estimated cost range, but unfortunately they weren't. And so today we're just going to talk a little bit about where we are and where we can go. And then on Thursday at your special meeting, you'll be able to make an actual action item or take action on which way to go with it. So today is just some information, get some questions from you. We can come back with more information if need be on Thursday. As we begin, just a few things, considerations to keep in mind. These are things that are kind of driving where we're at and how we got here. The bids we received last week are good for 60 days, so they expire on or around August 21st. Once we award the contract, if you choose to, the state then has to conduct several meetings that have their own timelines and agenda deadlines and things like that. If they continue to award the contract, they proceed with their bond sale and funding that with a loan from the Pooled Money Investment Board. We are currently scheduled to break ground in late August, so all of that fits in with the schedule that we've designed it. If bids were to expire without us taking any action, rebidding would be difficult and costly. We say difficult because everybody bid on it once, may not be as much energy around it to bid again. That will affect costs. Obviously, costs continue to go up as we wait. If we do move forward and identify the additional funding source, anything other than general fund will cause a lengthy delay due to the state's process in ensuring that our funding doesn't interfere with their ability to get any funding. As all this happens, of course, construction costs are still expected to go up. They're not leveling off yet. And just to recap, we did receive 5 bids out of 8 pre-qualified contractors. However, the lowest bid had an error, and we granted their withdrawal. So 4 bids remain valid. The low bid is $20,139,852. The average of bids received of the 4 remaining is $21,678. So that's, there were 3 of them within 20 million, right around the 20 mark. So that is a good sign that that's a realistic price. Just a brief overview on the history of how we got here. 2007 is when we applied for and obtained the original financing for this project. The state held a competitive selection process, looking at different counties, what they were going to provide, number of beds, programming space, other features to help them run more efficiently. We received a $15 million state award that required a $5 million county match. The needs assessment report that we prepared for that application indicated that by 2020 we would need 248 beds and 2040 need 365 beds. The project as designed right now would give us 214. Needs and types of inmates have changed a lot in 10 years. There was a need to deal with some of those issues 10 years ago. It's continued to evolve. The new project will address, other than just additional housing, it will address a lot of the other issues and concerns that they have to deal with daily out there. In 2011, the state offered a Phase 2 financing program which basically lowered the county match. We were not allowed to change our scope or request any additional funds in order to make sure that we still received an award, but we were able to lower our match down to approximately $1 million. With that new financing plan in place, we began design in 2013. And
Alan, hold on a minute.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I got to ask this question. So if we would have not obtained Phase 2 funding because we kind of lost out on time, maybe we probably would have gotten lower. I don't know. Just
hindsight.
Yeah. The $5 million, I mean, yeah.
Well, if you'll recall, in 2009, nobody was really doing that well, and the prospect of funding that $5 million was probably much more daunting than what you're facing now today, all things being equal, but I couldn't say for sure.
Go ahead, Alan.
So we began design targeting a $13 million construction estimate. As design progressed and we noticed some escalation, we shifted to dorm-style housing, which had the dual benefit of saving costs as well as adding some additional beds. And we shrunk the square footage in all other areas to help contain those costs. In 2016, last year, when we were ready to bid, escalation was much larger than predicted. We spent the last year discussing the $5 million deficit that was estimated, and CCP agreed to pay that back out of AB 109 funds at $250,000 a year. We went to bid this year. Bids unfortunately came in $3 million more than that estimate, which is what we're here discussing today. So we have a few options, obviously. First option is to simply award the project and cover the $3 million deficit from general fund. That does not preclude us from obtaining financing to repay the general fund. Those are options that Joe Paul will have for you. The total county contribution in this case would be approximately $10 million. Cancel the project is an option. We would lose the $15 million state award and the $1.4 million in various consultant costs that are currently reimbursable, but obviously wouldn't be reimbursed if we don't move forward. We can obtain additional financing prior to award. That would be subject to state approval, and meanwhile, construction costs still escalate. And then another option would be to attempt a scope change. And I say attempt because a scope change would depend on the original scoring matrix, if it's allowed at all. And we are trying to obtain that scoring matrix from the state. They did not divulge that to us back in 2008. We were trying to find that to see what features of our design got the most scoring. Obviously, if there was a high score for housing or for the programming, wouldn't be able to cut those items. The current scope as designed matches our original application. There are no additional spaces that were added. The size of spaces has already been reduced during design to control the escalating costs that we saw happening at that time. To offset the increased $3 million cost, we would need to cut at least $5 million to offset additional design fees and cost escalation, or approximately 24% of the current space. To do that, we would need to either delete all of the intake and release space, or delete all of the admin lobby and medical space, or cut the housing unit in half. And there's a drawing here to help you kind of see a little bit better what we're talking about. The space that looks kind of like a diamond on the left is the existing facility. The proposed facility is on the right. You can see there's basically three kind of blocks to that building. On the far right is the housing units. In the middle, to the top, near where the vehicles are on the top there, that's the intake and release area. And then everything south of that hallway is the public lobby, the administration area, and the medical service area. So basically, the options include, would it include reducing or eliminating one of those three blocks to get the square footage and therefore the cost down. Those are all key components to what the facility needs to address their existing limitations, as well as what we were presumably graded on in our original application.
You still need state approval, right?
We would...
Either way.
Yes. We've had unconfirmed reports that they have allowed scope changes. The ones that we have heard about were not very drastic scope changes. In our case, being such a small facility, a small piece ends up being a much larger percentage. A much larger county that has a large project has some more options with what they can nip and tuck than what we can. So it's unconfirmed whether it would be allowed and to what extent it would be allowed. But we're trying to track that down. So again, no decision made today. This is for your information. You can give us any questions you have that we can try to research further. I'm not sure if there's anything anyone else needs to add at this time.
Mr. Chair, I would like to invite Joe Paul Gonzalez up. I know he's been doing some work on this last probably 24 hours or so with financing. So,
Sure.
and also too, the facility committee did meet yesterday after the budget hearings, and we had a healthy discussion. And one of the key components was looking at the different financing. So Joe Paul's going to share with us that right now.
Well, I was going to try to hook up.
Mr. Chair, if I may, can we take a 5-minute recess so that way we can hook up the computer?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
back at the 400 block. All we need is 1,066, 1,166. So every decision we make here, I'm going to put it on the ballot. It sets the wrong precedence, it does. But
Hold on, we're not ready.
All right, that's on my way out. Yeah. That's good.
You guys going coffee again? I agree. I agree. You'd be surprised. That's such a true statement.
Right now. That's
What are you laughing at, Chase? Makes my job a lot easier, right, Chase?
chocolate for firewall of San Diego County. Have you ever heard of Stuxnet? Stuxnet virus? Doesn't need the internet. It like you could just put it somewhere next to it. We made it. Yeah, you guys in your
Marcus, actually. Marcus.
Okay, because I raised this up and so Tom, I can be seeing I've been bought off.
Are we ready? You know, 2 more minutes and Joe Paul will be buying us lunch.
I just gave you guys lunch. Chocolate bar.
Put the timer 2 minutes. Put the timer.
He's buying lunch.
Yes, 2 minutes. Otherwise, he's buying lunch for us. After 2 minutes.
Just let the time run out and then we'll tell him afterwards.
By order of the chair.
You know, I heard that Joe has a great lunch special going on today. Yep. Just don't have enough mustard. That's the problem.
We're in time.
Joe. My God, Joe, you came too early.
I apologize for the delay.
No, it's okay. You were going to buy lunch. Don't worry about it.
Okay. So, hopefully you could see that.
On the bottom right-hand corner? On the bottom right-hand corner, Joe Paul, can you expand it to like 125 or 130%, please?
No.
No, 100, like 120, yeah. There you go, that's good, 100. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so there's a couple of financing options that I wanted to present to the board. Is if we went out and said, we're going to see if we can get a private placement loan for the full $9.2 million. And we're able to get a 20-year terms. We think we can still get about 3%. Monthly payment on that is about $51,000. The debt service for annually is $612,000. Cumulatively on the 9.2, we actually be paying out over $12 million and about over $3 million in interest. The annual payment of $612,000 would $250,000 of it would be coming from the CCP. So the general fund would be on the hook to pay for the $362,000 annually. Now, we discussed a little bit at the meeting yesterday at the facility committee meeting, where our impact fees concerning the jail and juvenile justice impact fees have not been updated for quite a while. And in the master tax agreement with the city of Hollister, they have agreed to collect these fees on behalf of the county. And so, but they're extraordinarily low. We can put this project in that impact fee, plan, and we'd be able to collect the appropriate amount coming from that impact fee to help pay for this payment. Recall that the existing jail was a 20-year COP, certificate of participation, which is debt service, and that impact fee helped pay for most of it. However, we experienced, during the repayment period, we experienced the moratorium with the city of Hollister. So, growth was very limited, so we didn't really, it was, basically the jail was mostly paid by, at least the portion that pertained to the county was mostly paid by the county's general fund. However, the advantage that we have now is that we're not in a moratorium. There's a huge demand for housing, and this is the time to actually, be collecting these impact fees to help make these payments for the expansion of the jail that is needed. Okay, so that's 9.2 over a 20-year scenario. This next scenario is the same amount, but over a 15-year. We pay about $1 million less in interest in a 15-year bond payment or private placement. we'd have to be coming up with about $500,000 annually to, to make the payment from the general fund or, from impact fees or a combination thereof. So those, and of course, we, depending upon what our debt service capacity is, but we don't know yet, we'll be adding behavioral health billing to this. What we're really doing is we're leveraging our assets, which we haven't used, in order to provide modern facilities for our departments. And so this is not unusual. This is how, cities and counties and special districts, this is how they are able to build new facilities, as they go out and collateralize the assets that they own in order to build new assets. The question is, what's that revenue stream that pays for those, makes those payments? We know that a large portion of it is going to be coming from the CCP or the AB 109 money. The other portion could potentially be coming all from impact fees. And but the truth is, it's always the general fund that's on the hook. There's no getting around that. But using financing as opposed to internal financing, which would be eliminating, much of our, $9.2 million of our reserves. I understand that that's not that attractive an option to the board. The board, wants to maintain its flexibility and its ability to use those funds for something else that comes up. So I think this is a real possibility for the board to pursue, is to actually do this. But as I understand it, in order to go forward with our project, the board has to declare our current reserves that will be used for this project. Now, this is a budgetary movement. This is budget, not general ledger. So it's not, even though we're budgeting to cancel $9.2 million of reserves, that doesn't mean that we actually move those reserves into the project. We don't use them until we need them. So we have plenty of time to go out and secure financing in order to meet this meet the cost of this construction project, this one and behavioral health.
And the impact fees is just a matter of us, Louis, of us, doing the Nexus study and all the other good stuff.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this is actually very timely. The data, and I think we had this discussion with the ad hoc committee a few weeks ago, one of the issues that we had with the updating of the impact fees was we didn't have empirical data that we were able to provide to the consultant in order for them to be able to calculate the appropriate fee. Now, with this information that we've gotten from the bidding process for the jail, for the government service center study that is going to be completed in the next couple of weeks, hopefully now with the juvenile hall updates, we're going to be able to provide some detailed information to the consultant that they'll be able to use to calculate an appropriate fee that's much more reflective of what the true costs of future infrastructure projects will be. We also, I should remind the board, have the study that's currently underway with regard to the possible formulation of a JPA or a fire district, which is also going to outline some of the elements for the fire services. So all of that data, all of that information, even though we don't have a master study, if you will, to submit to WILDAN, we will have those as bases of reference to submit to the consultant for them to appropriate the fees, to appropriately calculate the fees, I should say.
Supervisor Medina.
When will this be completed?
So we have submitted already the information for the jail to WILDAN today that we just got from Adam. The Government Service Center study is being done by the architectural firm, James, if you can help me with that name. Anderson Brule, and I think they're going to be doing a walkthrough tomorrow? Thursday. So they're going to be here on Thursday. They'll conduct the walkthrough, and they'll probably take a couple of weeks to do that. So within the next couple of weeks, we should be able to submit an updated set of data and then the calculations by the consulting.
By August 1st?
Probably by August is on the outside.
Thank you.
Supervisor Munzer?
So which impact fees are we studying?
Well, we have the Government Service Center. That is an impact fee that addresses the Government Service Center here in the central area of Hollister. We have the jail expansion. We're also going to increase that one. We also have the calculation that's being done for parks. There are several open space easements that need to be updated, so we're going to collect that one. We also have the fire services one that is being calculated as well. And within the contract that we have with Wilden, we also have the ability to update up to 5 additional fees for no additional costs that we have already worked into the contract. So in case there is another impact fee that needs to be included, we can include that as well.
Okay, so within the contract, can we expedite, say, the jail impact fee, so we can get that one done sooner than later?
Yes, so
we don't have to wait for all these other studies to get done?
Correct. So we have a call set up this Thursday to impress upon them the need to quickly produce those impact fee updates and have them back to in front of the board so you can take action on them. Yes.
Supervisor Batal?
Yeah, for benefit of the board, the committee a few weeks ago did jump down these guys' throats, as rightfully so. They've made a career out of this, and, I have an animosity towards most consultants to begin with. But these guys have been right there with the general plan folks. But really, we really have to have this. I sometimes have a feeling that they've just made a career of it, and the housing is to be over before we put the fees in place, and we can't collect this money anyway.
Well, Mr. Botello, you're absolutely right. The ad hoc committee made very clear their position. I think going forward, however, what we're going to do on a yearly basis is review these for updates, because we did not actively manage these in this manner. So going forward, that's one of the tasks that the CAO has made very clear to me is of the highest priorities, is to make sure that we keep focus on those, that we update them yearly if necessary, and that we update them according to what our plan, the plans of the board are.
And also, maybe I would suggest to the board and staff, if we could strategize this, we're not going to get all of it, with the impact fees, where we need to also incorporate some of the costs into the CFD as we impose that countywide.
I think County Council's already brought a contract for the CFDs to the CAO, so part of that effort is exactly what County Council has recommended.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Supervisor Rivas?
Thank you. We're just starting the contract for the CFD to start the analysis, and then it may need to come to the board after the first initial analysis is completed.
Thank you. Ray, nothing? Okay, good. Thank you, Louis. Joe, thank you.
I think
Anybody have questions? Oh, yeah. I'll open up to the public. Okay. Thank you.
The only thing that I want to reiterate is that in order for this project to go forward, the board has to make a positive affirmation that is, they like to go forward with the project. They have to cancel those reserves because it needs to show that this project is, is being supported in the budget. And so that's why CAO Espinoza asked the budget hearings be extended to Thursday, so that the board had a chance to deliberate and, make the, whatever determination.
And probably one more point for the board to remember is that the bids do cancel on August 1st or
21st.
Oh, late August. So we have to make a decision on Thursday and just live with it.
Okay. Supervisor Munzer?
So, Joe Paul, do we have to incumbent the reserves this year? in this budget cycle, or do we have the option of waiting one more budget cycle to?
Well,
Has to be done.
remember, we're simply canceling the reserves
I understand.
from a budgetary standpoint in 17-18 because it shows the state, hey, we need
Okay,
business.
so that needs to be done
Yeah, it does.
Needs to be done basically on Thursday.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
I was just going to answer the question, but yes, that's right. We have to do it this year.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the board. Just to respond to your comment, we have a large number of residential subdivisions, obviously, that are under construction. They've been approved years ago. We have projects that have been approved recently that they have development agreements, and those are kind of set. But the remainder of these large subdivisions, we're not going to lose those with these impact, whether it's July or August. They've got a ways to go through their environmental review, their public hearings, and these fees can all be tied to their final map, which is, then 2 years down the road. So we're not going to lose any of these pending projects.
Well, that's good because our track record is not good. I've been on the impact fee ad hoc committee for, I don't know, years. And also to set up the countywide CFD is going to take some time. And I just have a real sense of urgency to get this all set up. Sooner we set it up, the more fish we catch. We get the net out.
Yeah.
But having these jail and public safety numbers is going to be a great add to this project. Looking at the park impact fees more critically will be good, and so these will be well in place before these other projects come through.
Okay, thank you, James. I thought you were going to come here in response to Anthony's comments about you guys, but
Once those impact fees are adopted in the county, it's really important that the intergovernmental committee, notify the city that this is the new impact fee that's to be collected, because the city has consistently collected the impact fee on behalf of the county.
okay. All right, thank you. So I guess that wraps up the meeting. That's okay, Sheriff. You're in good hands.
I'd just like to provide my comment on the project very briefly. As a resident here, a person who's raised my family here, I'm very well acquainted with the needs of this community. I'm certainly aware that there's a number of things that we could be doing with our money right now other than building a jail. But I want to say that although it does not come at a great time, this is a great opportunity for our county. And as you make your decision over the next couple of days, knowing that we'll be coming to you for a full commitment in 2 days, I want to spotlight the fact that this is a great opportunity for the future of public safety in this community, and I'd appreciate that you would continue to consider that.
Thank you, Sheriff. Okay. All right, that concludes our morning session. County Council closed session.
Yes, we're going to remove items number 38, 39, and 43 from the agenda, and they will not be heard. Item 37, closed session, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure pursuant to litigation, pursuant to subdivisions D2, E2, Government Code Section 54956.9, number of cases 1, facts and circumstances justifying closed session, potential of additional litigation regarding the master tax agreement currently being litigated in Ward Homes versus County of San Benito, case number CU 15-00099, and the BMC Promise Way case. Let's see. 40. Closed session, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, initiation of litigation pursuant to D4, Government Code 54956.9, number of cases 1. Number 41 is closed session, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure pursuant to 54956.9, number of cases 1, authorized by subdivisions D2 and E1. And last but not least, closed session pursuant to Section 54956.95, liability claims and conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, subdivisions A and D1 of 54956.9. Name of case is Egan versus San Benito County Sheriff's Office, Trindale Insurance Fund, Workers WCAB, case number ADJ 100497774. The claimant is Patricia Egan, and the agency claimed against the San Benito County, which is a member of the Trindle Insurance Fund.
Okay, well, anyone from the public? No one? Okay, we'll go to closed session.